I'm going to be covering how to fix, how to paint over in Photoshop and create another texture to fix this projection error that we are, well, it's not exactly an error, it's just to project a second texture to fix what's going on here. So today I'm going to be showing you how to paint over this area. In terms of the sofa on the right and the table on the left, I think this is going to be covered during class with Louis. And the front two cubes and the table here, you'll notice that there are some black outlines here, as well as some inaccuracies here. These are because the alphas were done in Photoshop and obviously placed inside Maya, but there is a much more efficient way to do it in Nuke in a few clicks, and Louis will be covering that. I'm not going to waste my time to teach this in here if it's going to take longer when you guys can do it much quicker using another software. So for the purpose of this tutorial, we are just going to be using JPEG images. I'm not going to be covering Targas and TIFF. Louis will be covering that as well, because since there are no alphas, I'm just going to stick to JPEGs. So I believe the image we are going to be using ends in 8308, which is going to be provided on the VLE as well. So let's get started. So if we look inside the Maya file, this is the orange cube that needs to be painted first. So I'm going to duplicate this with Ctrl J on your keyboard and delete this layer. So we'll just do a file save as first to save the Photoshop file and call it paint over. Just save this. And then the next thing I'm going to do is use my polygonal lasso tool, and before we do this, I'm going to create a new layer. And in the brush set that was provided to you last semester on the VLE, there's the third one from the bottom is this grid. So I'm just going to click here and create this grid. Control T on your keyboard, right click distort. So what I'm going to do is basically match the perspective of this carpet. That's because I'm going to need it to get the right perspective to replace this carpet here, because when I'm replacing the carpet, I'm not going to know where the lines have to be accurately. So this grid is going to help me do that. So there we go, we just match this here. Alright, if you look at the lines of the carpet as well, it does help. So it looks this line doesn't quite match, so I'm just going to pull this down there. Right, there we go. So now it matches. So just going to hit enter on my keyboard. Just call this perspective. So we're going to create a folder called, we're going to work on the floor and wall first, and then the next thing that I'm going to work on the other cubes, but that's a little bit towards the end. So I'm going to create a new layer. Also, I'm going to make this red and duplicate it, Ctrl J again, and place this one inside this layer. The reason why I'm doing this is my reference image. So if I do happen to make any mistakes during this tutorial, I can go back and reuse this without even deleting this one. So turn our perspective grid off. Using the polygonal lasso tool, I'm going to create a selection here. Right click, layer by copy, and then I'm going to move this over here. Next thing I'm going to do is turn the perspective grid on. Control T, right click distort, and if you look down here, this line is where the carpet has to align to, so it's going to stop somewhere here. Let's see, I'm going to move it over here. obviously, as you can see, it's got a lot of trial and error. So just gonna double check where it has to stop. So somewhere here, that's where the corner has to be. Somewhere here, there. Oh, see, this isn't really working, so I'm gonna try another technique. So we're gonna make it right here, so it has to be parallel with the white line. Right, so I've created this selection here, which is roughly, so I'm gonna hold Alt on my keyboard and just deselect this section here. Just make sure it's parallel. Yeah, roughly the same. So this is where I'm gonna use the clone stamp tool. I'm just gonna move over here. Clone stamp tool, which is S on your keyboard. That's a hotkey. Gonna bring the opacity up. Make sure this is under all layers. And I'm gonna hold Alt and select this section here. Increase my brush size. Actually make it slightly smaller. Select this area again. Right, so that's covered. Next thing I'm gonna do is, oops, there's a mistake there. This bit. Right, that looks okay. So next thing I'm going to do is deselect this section and bring the perspective grid on again. And select this area, turn the perspective grid, and go back, hit S on my keyboard. I'm just going to paint over here. And I'm going to right click, select inverse, S again, and just paint this section here. Right, so that's done. Next thing, I'm going to choose my polygonal lasso tool again. Make another selection, make sure it aligns with what we're doing here. Turn this off. S again on your keyboard, and just paint this here. Holding Alt just to deselect that section, and just holding Shift just to add that little corner here. Double clicking, holding S again. Alright, so deselecting this. Next thing we're going to do is obviously carry on moving up. So selecting this area again. Same process again, Alt click and selecting an area. I'm just painting it. Right, so this section is done. I believe this cube as well appears in our image, so bring the perspective grid on again. I think it's roughly about here. Again, S, alt click. And then creating a layer mask by going down here. I'm just going to select my eraser and inverse it by either clicking here or pressing X on your keyboard. And then just going to bring the opacity down a little bit just to soften this edge here. Alright, so if you look over here, it looks okay so far. We're going to probably have to fix this area, but what I want to do now is Control Shift S, which is save as, go down to JPEG and create, well, call it paint over, save it, go back to our Maya file. I'm going to create a new shader here, so assign new material, surface shader, out color, right click, create as projection, change planar to perspective, and camera through our projection camera. And then go down here and select our paint over. So that looks pretty good, apart from this little section that's got the orange showing. Yep, and this area needs fixing as well, the angle's wrong. So we'll just go back here, make our selection again, hold S, alt click, and just paint over here, which is good. Next thing we're going to do, I'm going to create a new layer, actually, probably not, just go down here, make a selection of this. Right click, layer by copy, and I'm going to bring this layer up and then move it over here. So now what I'm going to do is go to my perspective, Control T, right click, distort, and I'm going to move this down here up until the angle matches, which is about here. So press enter, perspective, let's have a look. Just need to move it a little bit further, so right click, distort, which is about here. So now if I do Control Shift S again, go to JPEG and save it, reload this texture, so look, still doesn't look quite right, so I'm going to turn it off for now. And I'm going to come down here because considering the angle is the same for this section here, it should match with the one above. So right click, layer by copy, bring it up again. We're just going to move it down here, bring the perspective grid on, Control T, right click, distort. Alright, we'll just hit OK for now and just have a look. So Control T again, distort, just to make this match align perfectly here. Just move this down here. Alright, hit enter again, Control Shift S, JPEG. Have a look inside Maya. Right, that's much better. Okay, so we've got this done. Now the next thing, just to finalize this section, is so we can delete this layer because we don't need it anymore. I'm going to merge those layers. Obviously, if you don't feel confident merging them at this stage, you can just duplicate them inside here and do all your tweaks to it, modify it up until you're happy with the result, and then later on just save it as a JPEG. So I've just gone right here to select the blur tool, and I'm just going to blur those edges, because if you look everywhere the edges are quite blurry, so whereas here it's quite sharp. So I'm just going to blur this just using the blur tool here. Okay, that's it. Next thing, we're going to move up here, and let's just move to the right a little bit. Yeah, that looks okay. Okay, so the next thing we are gonna do is work on the section up here, which is that corner, just beneath the box and the table. So I'm just gonna create a new layer. Same process again. Polygonal lasso tool. Turn perspective grid on, which is somewhere down here. Alright, so that's done. Turn it off again. Same process, selecting, well, using the clone tool, just painting over here. I'm just going to make this slightly smaller, selecting this section. Okay, so now I'm going to select this bit again, turn the perspective grid on again, and select this area, turn it off, clone stamp tool, and just paint. Oops. I don't need my perspective grid in this case because I know it just stops here. Just bring it down here. I'm going to make sure I don't move the shadow. Just going to mask out the shadow because we're going to need it there to. Otherwise, if we erase the shadow, it's not going to look believable in the second projection. Alright, same thing again, clone stamp tool. I'm just painting this bit here. So if I turn on the perspective, I'm just going to create a selection that's parallel to this one, and then turn this off. Just because this bit doesn't look right, so okay, I'm just going to Control Shift S again. So here's a JPEG. Just have a look here and see what's going on. Yeah, that looks good to me. So now we can move on and fix this section. We'll move on to the cubes at the end. Just going to turn the perspective grid on again. In fact, let's create a second one because we're going to need a second one for the wall. So you call it perspective 2, go back to the brush. We only need a few lines for this because it's only this tiny section here. So I'm going to bring it down there, Control T, right click, distort, and make the lines match with the perspective, with the trunking down here. Obviously, you need to move this until the lines, the vertical lines, also match with the sockets here. So yep, that looks about right to me. So just hit that, and we'll move on to this section down here. So I'm gonna create a, just bring the opacity down a bit to know what's going on. Just going to bring the other perspective grid as well. Right, so just going to turn both off, select my clone stamp tool again. Right, so that's done. Next thing, we'll just move on to that little corner here. Clone stamp tool again. Okay, so now next thing, I'm going to create a new layer. Using my polygonal lasso tool again, I'm just going to select this area. Actually, I don't need a new layer yet, so I'm just going to select this, right click layer via copy. Going to bring this up. I can delete this layer because I don't need it yet. So I'm just going to move this here, bring both perspective grids on. Actually, I don't need this one now. So if you see, there's a socket that roughly aligns here. So I'm going to Control T, right click, distort. Move this down here. And the vertical lines seem to roughly match. Just need to bring this up a little bit. Okay, so look from a distance. Yeah, in terms of perspective, it looks alright. So now we're going to fix the colors. So I'm going to create a layer mask, go to my eraser, with a soft brush and the opacity fairly low, well, about 50%. Just going to erase this little section here. So next thing we're going to do is create a new layer, go to my clone stamp tool, and just select this bit here. Actually, I'm going to come down here. Just gonna bring the opacity down because I'm trying to make this like nicely blend in. Just gonna increase it again now. Gonna extend this as well. I'm just gonna zoom out completely, and obviously the first thing that stands out is this color here. Just gonna get rid of it. Then I'm gonna bring the opacity down, just to make sure this blends in quite well. Alright, so look. It just seems to be like a dark patch here, so I'm just gonna paint over that. Just need to straighten this area as well. Alright, looks quite good. So next thing, I'm just going to paint over this box, this cube here. Let's bring the opacity up. Alright, Control Shift S. Go to JPEG. Oops, JPEG here. Just going to save it. Go back to Maya. I need to assign this material to. Oh, did I not name it? Surface shader. I can't remember what we called it. I think it was something like wall and floor. Alright, let's assign it to here. So like so. Yep, looking good to me. So now down here, that's just the final bit that needs fixing. So let me just double check this again. Seems to be that little section here. So we'll just create another layer. Select this area, which doesn't need the perspective grid anymore because it's just a very tiny section. It's not going to be seen. So then right click, select inverse. I reckon that should be just about enough. Obviously we need to soften this. I'm just going to select the eraser. Just double check what it looks like. So JPEG, paint over. Yeah, that's been fixed, although the color seems slightly different, so just gonna go here again. S again on the keyboard, just paint over here. Go back to the mask and just wipe it, erase this out, so Control Shift S. Okay, let's double check. Yep, that looks good, apart from this little patch here. So S again, just gonna paint over this. Yeah, should fix it. So we'll double check this later on, but in terms of the floor, that's done. Now I'm just going to move on to the cube. it should be fairly quickly to do. So we'll just turn this one off. I'm just going to duplicate this and create a new folder. I'll call it, I don't know, back cubes or something. I'm going to move that layer inside it. So now all I've got to do is create this section. Layer via copy, and I'm going to move it over here up until it roughly matches. So I'm going to distort this here. Right, so now I'm going to create a mask and just erase this. Alright, so create a new layer and again clone stamp tool. Just going to select this section here, just kind of roughly paint over here. Control Shift S again. This time we're going to create a new texture, so I'm just going to call it back cubes. So now I'm going to create a new shader here. Assign new material, surface shader. Right click, create as projection, play in a perspective, go through projection camera, and back cubes over here. Alright. So this is it. Obviously, as you can see, this section here still appears because, as I said right at the beginning, Louis is going to show you guys a much more efficient way of doing this. Obviously, if you notice like little sections, like a little orange patch here, or slightly darker areas, but obviously you guys will be spending way more time on this. So if I just hit play, there we go. This is it. This is pretty much what it takes to create a second projection to fix the parallax here. Down here I've noticed that this needs fixing as well, so you guys can work on this little section. There's a tiny bit of parallax down here, but that's it. If you guys need any help in terms of covering all the other, well, what the other stuff does, I'll be going around one-to-one as well after your sessions, and also helping you guys if there's anything that needs painting over in Photoshop, just like we did here. So thank you for watching.